Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Melissa. And hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about ransomware DR. What is it? How we can recover from it? And more interesting information I think you should know. So first of all, let's talk a bit about disaster recovery and disasters, right? They could be anytime, in any place, in any cloud provider. And I'm going to show you some example in a second, but it always will happen when we're drinking our hot coffee or when we're just going to our vacation, or it have to be in a jinx way, right? So let's talk a bit about the clouds. I know that most of you, or all of you actually, are using clouds today. So over the years, we can see a few examples of disaster that happened to the most familiar cloud providers. So first Azure, right? There was a network fiber cut caused by some weather conditions in the Netherlands. So the servers was down. And of course, it could be all everywhere. So also in GCP and AWS, we had some network distraction during the last year. And I guess that some of you remember North Virginia that was down for a long time. Let me know in the chat if you want to share some crazy stories too or any disasters. But if you agree or disagree, it would be great. So disaster can happen everywhere and anytime for all kind of reasons, right? There is different reasons. Sometimes it's not really super important, but it could happen. And today we're going to talk about disasters and some ransomware DR and how we can protect ourselves. So first of all, thanks again for joining. I love to be here. My name is Batel Zohar, and I'm a developer advocate in the last 3 years, almost 3 years in JFrog. I was an embedded engineer before, then moved to full stack, and then joined JFrog. I was part of the support team and technical account manager, and I would love to talk about DevSecOps, AI. So really, feel free to reach out to me whenever you have any questions or just want to chat. I would love to discuss with you guys. And as you can see in the picture, I have two crazy doggies, Banjos and Saul. And, and yes, that's it for myself. Feel free to reach out later. And I think we can start. So just to make sure we are all aligned, let's explain what is a DR, right? Disaster recovery. You probably heard about it. So it's a set of processes, policies, and procedure that an organization implements to resume its critical IT system applications and data after a natural human-made disaster. So it could be simple, right? I just accidentally remove any file that could be critical for my team. It could be much more than that, but anything that will disrupt my day-to-day work, it could be an issue. So the goal of NDR is to minimize the downtime and data loss in the event of catastrophic events such as a hardware failure or a data center outage or just power outage or cyber attack or even just as we said before, just floods or something, earthquake or anything that is pretty natural, but it can affect us. So let's say that we have an horrible disaster in Peru, right? We want to make sure that the server on Uruguay are still up and running and everything functional as usual. So usually we would like to create a similar environment on different location, different place, different city, different whatever we will decide. It depends on the size, on the company, and different stuff like that. So we want to make sure, as I said before, that we're always up and running, right? No disruption. Everything was perfectly. Of course, sometimes it's a crazy dream, but we'll do our best together. So, what is a ransomware DR? Ransomware DR is a cyber attack. Like, as an example, you can't reach out to your data because it's encrypted, right? Some of you heard about ransomware before, and the attacker probably will encrypt all of my data, so I can't reach out to my application, to my servers, anything like that. So I'm kind of stuck outside, right? The attacker just closed my door, and now what I'm gonna do, right? I'm keep getting any errors or requests for some financial stuff and things like that. So ransomware is a type of malicious software that encrypts the victim's data, right? This is the official statement for that, making it inaccessible until ransomware is paid to this attacker. So ransomware attack have become a significant threat in the organization worldwide. And having robust ransomware disaster recovery strategy is essential to mitigate the impact such attacks like that. So let's take a second and think what will be the things that we need to think about when we're talking about cyber attack, ransomware, DRs, and stuff like that. So first, let's make sure that we are aligned with all the things that related to DR. So let's show the difference between DR and ransomware DR. All right, so the two main difference, of course, there is some more, but this is the main one that will help us to make some order in this information. So our DR environment will also be exposed during attack. And so all our data main and our DR will be vulnerable, right? In case that we have any DR environment, it could be exposed to. And quiet attack, it's also very, very different between just a simple DR to a ransomware DR. So when we're talking about quiet attack, the interior can attack quietly and slowly, and then it will start to destroy or taking out our data while the organization is not aware of any issue. So think about it. It could be someone from the organization or outside the organization, and if we will imagine our cloud services, it could be someone that just keeping getting more and more information about the environment. So it could be that in the beginning, the attacker won't have all the privileges, right? He can just reach to a specific location with a specific privileges that just showing the VMs, for example, right? It just show me the names. It's pretty simple. Just read, and then after a while, he will find other places that he can reach more and more data and gain more and more privileges in that case. And that could be very, very hard to understand how long he is in our environment, what he tried to achieve, how much information he got when he was part of our organization. So ransomware DR happens intentionally, in most of the cases. Now, let's talk a bit about RPO. I guess that some of you heard about RPO, which is Recovery Point Objective, which means how much data we are willing to lose during a DR event and how much it will harm to our business. So, of course, we really would love to cover everything and make sure that we have the best DR in the world. Everything will just, if something will happen, we can just go back. But sometimes it's not that easy, right? We need to measure the amount of that data that can be lost without any damaging to the business operation or finances, sorry. So it's really hard to try to focus and understand where is this point. And sometimes it's it's even impossible, right? Like we, of course, everybody think that they are up and running and they will be safe when they have the DR, but sometimes it's a little bit more than that. Now, we have the RPO and the RTO. So we have the recovery point that we talked before. We have the recovery time, how long it will take us to get back to business, to make sure that everything is up and running as we wanted before, and how quickly we need to recover. What is the cost for the downtime? So it's a little bit tricky, and try to think about your organization and what will be the best between the two of them, right? What will be okay for a downtime? Like if 5 hours of a downtime, it's something that it's affordable, or if we'll lose just 20% of our data, if that's okay. It's not like how I should plan it for the future, right? What will happen if we'll have a disaster? How I can prevent it? If I can prevent it, I'm not sure that we can prevent it. So we'll discuss about it. So as we said, cyber attack happen intentionally, right? So who will want to harm our company? So one case, it's internal attack, right? Employee within the company, like you can see in this story over here. I'll send you the link later on. An Amazon manager who stole almost 10 million with fake invoices and used the money to buy house, Tesla, Lamborghini. He's sent to jail, of course, but think about it, it can be someone from the company. You already know all the trick, all the businesses thing that you need to know, and it's much more easier than someone out of the company that would like to harm the company, right? And I guess that most of you heard about stories like someone that just got fired or something like that and was really pissed off from the situation and want to make sure that he is harmed somehow. So this is just one story. We have tons of stories and an example like that 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 the attacker could be an internal employee, ex-employee, or something like that. Now, the second case is just someone which is external, right? It could be any external attacker who is looking for money or looking for resources or looking for whatever. It could be a crypto mining. It could be anything that he would like to achieve with whenever he is getting to the source. So it could be someone like the crazy dictator if you saw the movie, and he's trying to reach out. So the idea here is to get the resources and attack in that case. So as we saw, we have the internal one and the external one. So probably you are now saying, what are the chances that this will happen, right? And I'm doing all of this preventive action, like running security tools to alert an instruction or strict policies and permission to block access or even using SSO method, right? And there is much, much more, like tons of things that we can go by the rules and do that securely. But eventually we can't be fully protective. Even if we will try our best, I believe that there is always a hole somewhere. So there is always a way to get in. So let's try to be prepared for the ransomware attack, right? Let's try to consider what we need to think about when we have a ransomware attack. So one of the most important things to take into consideration is decoupling. Maybe some of you heard about it, some of you may not, but decoupling, I think it's one of the most important services from it. Basically, one of the most important things here that I want you to take with you. And basically, we'll decouple the important services from one to another and to prevent the attack on a few areas. So the way to do that is using different accounts. So think about it that I'm using the production environment in one specific service or account. When I'm talking about testing, it will be on a different one. It could be for different services that were up and running. For our website, we will do a specific account. For our service, that the payment service, for example, it will be on a different one. And then the chances are reducing because the attacker will find one of the services. Of course, he can get to all of them, but it will be much more complicated when we're having different SSO, different password, different ways to get into those accounts. So, for example, it will be good to separate the security tools that were protecting our environment in an account with a minimal permissions, because if the attacker will reach out to the security tool, he can disable all our preventive measures to the security alert on instruction. But in another example, which is pretty simple too, is if we have an administrative interface in our product, right? We have something that's related to our admins. We would like to separate it from the rest of the services that will reduce the risk for the attacker. Will have admin access, which will allow configuration changes, right? So it's very specific for a specific component. So it won't be so harmed. So we'll try to decoupling our services. Now let's talk a bit about data layer. By data layer, we refer to the database that usually holds important data. So, for example, we have our customers' data, and in order to be protected from ransomware attack, the database snapshot should be copied to a different account. So, in case of a cybersecurity, the attacker will not be able to destroy them. So we will be protected and we'll have a clean backup of the data. Nice. A good practice will be to place the longest period as possible. But what is the longest period, right? Think about it. Like I should back up the data for a year, for a two, for a few months. So it's really hard to understand it because we have the retention of snapshot, and if we will take time to discover the instruction, it will still have the original data in place. So what is a long time again, right? Remember the quiet attack, it can be for a week, month, or even a year. So I'm gonna just get recover the full year. It will take time to recover it too, right? It's also something that we need to think about. Or we will just take a few months, but what will happen if someone just log in or register to the system just a little bit before our backup? What we're doing in that case? So I'm sorry you have a lot of questions to think about when you're leaving this session, and I'll try to answer most of them. And another important thing is the storage, right? The storage data can be binaries, it could be logs, files, and more that we would like to keep in our storage layer. So to keep it safe, we need to replicate it to a different account. Sounds again pretty simple, right? Just a replication, just another service that will up and running. But also here, we need to take into consideration that a new version of the file could be after attack happens. And again, the data is corrupted, so we need to keep our older version or the original version of the file. And what we're doing in that case, right? Like how much we are gonna pay for it and how it's gonna work when we have a lot of data, right? Where today it's not just a few megabyte, gigabyte, or even terabyte. It's much more than that. We have tons of data all over the world, and when will be the red line, kind of, right? Like when it's okay just to keep and stop right here, or should we try to get more and more data? Should we need to back up a little bit more? So it make it a little bit more complicated. And of course, eventually the workload. We will need to move our workload to the new account to work with the data that we already transfer, right? So all this process of copy from one place from to another could take some time. So again, we need to think about it. So should we prepare all the infrastructure ahead, right? Maybe it's something that we need to do at the first day that we are just creating a new project. Should we will think about the DR, copy everything? Of course, today there are great tools, right? Especially on the cloud, there is a lot of tools that help you to create a DR, and we can discuss about some tools later on. But the idea here is, again, should we just create an automation that create everything from scratch in case that we have a DR? What do you think that will be the best way? If you would like to share it on the chat, it could be cool, and we can talk a little bit about that. But think about what would you do, right? Think about the cost and the time and the idea that we don't have too much time when we have a ransomware DR, right? Think about the idea that the attacker can say something like, if you won't pay in 3 days, we're just removing all your data, all your encrypted data, and what you're doing right now, especially when we're talking about very large organizations. So we really need to think ahead what will be the best approach, what we're doing in case that we have something like that, and how to attack it in that case. Now, let's try to conclusion some of the things. I know I didn't cover everything, but we can talk a little bit about it later on. So we don't have too much time. So first, I think that decoupling the main services from one another, like I said before, the security tools will help us to reduce the risk. The second one will be how we can make sure that the data will be stay immutable over a long period of time. So, we have our database, we have our storage, and we want to make sure that we have it for a long time and it will stay there just for as much as we need. And let's think also about the maintaining the DR environments, application, upgrades, failover tests. Again, it's not something that will be so easy to maintain, right? Like even if we were thinking about the simplest scenario of just copy the same environment, right, from one place to another. We need to upgrade our services. We're upgrading our original server. We need to make sure that we are doing it the same in the DR environment. All right, so it's easy. We will just create the automation to do that. But what will happen if it's working perfectly in one environment? It won't happen in our DR, even if they are the same. Some stuff happened before, right? I guess that you will agree with me, but it could happen. And let we need to decide what will be our RTO and RPO, and taking into account the cost of the selected solution. Again, like a lot of people that I talked with them about DR told me, you can't just waste, depends, but let's say it's thousands of dollars about having a case that maybe something will happen. But what will happen if really something will happen, and then we need to set up our DR as soon as possible? It's also an issue, and we need to think about it, like where we're crossing the line. So what will be our exact point that we would like to recover in that case? How long it should happen, and it should take to recover, and what will be the best solution here. So I hope I make some order today. Thank you very, very much for being here today. Let's see, I see that we have some Q&A. So, okay, cool.
Hey, Batel.
So, hey,
Thank you so
Melissa.
much. Hi.
Thank you.
I started out listening to you and I was immediately terrified. I think this is an excellent topic for this theme that we have, haunted DevOps. But you did a really good job of giving like some real life solutions, how to tackle it without just being frozen and not know what to do. Can you, so I am not as familiar with like all the terms and everything for disaster recovery. And you mentioned a couple of times RTO and RPO. Can you
Right.
go over those again, just for our audience sake, and really for mine, I'm being selfish. Just remind me what those actually are and how important they are.
Sure, thank you very much. So RTR is recovery time objective that measure the duration of time an application can be down without any damaging business operation. So as I tried to show before, I'll try to find my slide just a second, just in case. So we have the recovery time objective. And if we're talking about RPO, we have recovery point objective, which is measure the amount of data that can be lost without considerably, again, damaging operation or finance. So if you don't mind, I'll share my screen again. Maybe Brian can help me with that, or I'll just share. Yeah, it's great. So let's talk a bit about that for a second again. So we said, first we have the data that we can afford to recreate or lose over here with the recovery point. And then we have the recovery time. So it's kind of a tricky game between the two. Like, again, what will be more important to my organization? Just to recover as soon as possible what we had before a year? Or we need everything that we are having before a month or something like that, so we can just recover quickly than just spending tons of money of keeping everything for a long time. It's kind of a tricky game, and we have the recovery time and recovery points, actually, which is the RPO. Thanks for asking.
Cool. Yeah, this is really helpful. And I actually took a screenshot of this because it's something I want to tweet about later, talk about your session a little bit. So have you yourself personally been a victim of an attack? Like just personally, a company you've worked for or anything like that?
So not exactly personally, but my husband company, just I know that they have some attack. They actually help to attack other attackers and stuff like that. He's more DevSecOps professional than me, but I try to be involved as much as I can to learn a little bit more about it. I know that after I left one of the companies that I worked before, they have an attack. I didn't have all the details. I just know that it was ransomware attack when it just beginning, like before 6 years or something like that. But I think it's really interesting. Like I always trying to get more and more information about it, and it's really crazy to see how different organization looking for this, right? Like there is so many ways to attack it, or so many ways to try to prevent it. Even when we're in talk with our DevOps or other DevOps engineers all over the world, it's kind of a very tricky or interesting question to think about, because there is so many ways to think about the prevention, what to do in case it's happening, what will be the best approach even after they got attacked, how to really talk to the attackers and stuff like that. It's really crazy, like so many things to think about, and
Right.
you can't do that quickly.
Yeah, this is true. And it seems like, we come up with solutions and then attackers find a way around it. So it's probably
Right.
not something even that will remain static. These solutions will grow and change over time. But some of the things that you talked about seem to be, especially your, what did you like decoupling, things like that. It seems like those will always be a good solution, making sure that you keep things separate so that when things do get attacked, maybe not everything goes down at the same time, or you have,
Exactly.
some other way of accessing your stuff. So I'm same as you. I have not personally been involved in an attack like that at an organization at any level, but certainly personally, I mean, I shopped at Target. So I remember, I've gotten several letters in the mail since then about various attacks on data. So I was really paying
Wow.
attention to, what you were talking about when you were talking about data, and making sure that you have redundant data and things like that. But there's probably some stuff that we need to do personally for our own disaster plans, right? Um,
Definitely.
yeah. So we have a lot of devs in our audience, and
Hmm.
I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that, like, even, if we go down to just our local workstation, and maybe you don't have an attack per se on your system, but have you ever, had your computer blow up on you?
So many times,
And
yeah.
not have a plan for dealing with that.
Yeah, definitely, especially now. I
Yeah.
had something similar with my phone actually.
Yeah.
It's not exactly an attack, but it just died, and I was like, all right, what I'm gonna do right now? I didn't prepare a backup. I was like, everything is on the cloud, but not really everything, and it could
Right.
happen.
Yeah. So those are dangers too, right? So not even
Right,
just attacks, but just like things that happen that slow us down.
right.
And that's one thing. So as a developer, what would you suggest? What can we do individually to protect ourselves?
Wow. All right. That's a really hard question. But first of all, the basic stuff that you already know, don't use the same password and stuff like that. Use somewhere like that can, like a vault or something that you can have a different password that will attack your specific account and so on. Two-step authentication, all right? It's so popular right now. Everyone asks you to add a two-step authentication, but not everybody doing it so far. So please, for the important stuff like your GitHub account, for your authenticator account for different accounts or something like that, make sure that it's up and running and always allowed, right? We want to make sure that we are as secure as possible. And of course, there is much, much more than that, but the basic one is again kind of decoupling of services for our own, because I don't want to have my personal stuff on my job computer, right? Just in case that one day I will just join another company or just do something else. And where is all my data? I want to make sure that it's in my personal computer and won't be really involved with other stuff. For my opinion, it's much more safer.
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
that there is
Agreed.
some regulation that they can see and stuff like that. So just in case, keep it on your personal stuff on different place. And I
Yeah.
see that there is a question actually from the audience. What would be a good time frame to recover? And so I think it's really hard. Maybe I would like to share some folks too, but again, it depends on the organization. It depends how big it is, how many PRs we're doing every time, how many versions that we're releasing, and what is the time frame, right? Like in case that we're talking about specific application that was attacked, if we will go one or two version backwards, is that enough, or we should think ahead for the last 3 months or whatever? I'm sorry, I don't have the best answer, Mark, but I think that we need to take it and talk a little bit about the organization, right? What we having and what is the time frame? How many builds do we have there? What is the difference between the versions and so on? And try to think about it. I think it's really, really hard to get, or even impossible to get to a perfect time frame. But depends on how many developers we have, what we're developing, and what will be the difference between the versions. Because even today, right, we would like to keep the application as is and just add a small services each time. So maybe it's not so bad if one service will go down or it won't work or something like that, and we can just rebuild it. But again, it's changing every time. So I'm sorry, I don't have the perfect answer for that. But what do you think, Melissa? Do you think we have
Yeah.
a good
Well,
time frame to recover?
yeah, I mean, you talked about having that balance, figuring out
Yeah.
how much is it worth to you. And then, you also have to ask these questions. Is it better to go back or to move forward? So like
Right.
perhaps, just removing, let's say an attack came in through a particular package, maybe remove it altogether, or maybe do something different. But Mark, he touches on something that is a sensitive subject for us in particular, because I think we probably get approached with these questions all the time, especially about how often should I update? Let's say you
Exactly.
have, right, like it's not usually, it's not the
Hmm.
case that all of the stuff you have is proprietary. You might be using other libraries and packages and things like that for your software alone, right? So how often, there's one end of the spectrum where you update all the time to make sure that that you don't have, new vulnerabilities creeping in, or dealing with existing vulnerabilities, things like that. But on the other hand, you might be updating something so frequently that now you can't get back to a point where you were safe. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Or you have
exactly.
so many moving pieces now that it's hard to really tell where to go back to.
Yeah,
So
super
I,
hard.
yeah, so managing those builds and stuff can get tricky, but I think at the very least, having a good list of everything that is in your software to begin with, you can at least
Hmm.
begin that process of figuring out where an attack might have come from if it turns out to be like a vulnerability in your software, for example.
Right.
So yeah, lots to think about, Batel.
Yeah, but this is a great start.
Yeah,
Thanks,
yeah,
Melissa.
definitely. I loved your conclusions. Really liked, especially what you talked about with decoupling, about redundancy in data. So, yeah, I'm going to go think about this for a while and think about, even just personally at my level, just as a developer, what can I do not only to protect myself and have my own disaster recovery plan, but how can I prevent myself from, being inadvertently part of an attack or something on my own organization because of being lazy with passwords. You
Yeah,
talked
I
about
can tell
that.
you my crazy story about it. Actually, I have my smart home automation with a Home Assistant,
Uh-huh.
and I was really, silly in the beginning, and I was like, everything is working perfectly, and I don't need a backup, and everything was good. After, of course, it took me a long time to develop everything and configure everything. So after I read about that, I created my own disaster recovery for my smart home. So in case that I have one of them will be down, I have the other respirator that will be up and running and get the power and all of it. But it could be even a simple stuff, right? Think about it tomorrow somehow the router will be down, or so you need another way to get your power outage and stuff like that. So it's not an official DR, but think about
Yeah,
how it can help you with your something small that you're already doing all the time, and it
yeah.
helps for the whole organization. Yeah.
I didn't even think about that with smart homes and like your internal network. And yeah, I was just thinking,
It's
I
everywhere.
have a daughter now that's getting really interested in coding and stuff. And, she'll
Ooh.
come visit and get on my network. And, I don't know exactly what all she's pulling down or what all she's doing. So this is probably a conversation I need to be having with her as well. So yeah, interesting stuff.